So first of all, I know for a fact I'm not going to get through all my slides. It's just not going to happen. So I'm going to get through as many as I can and all the most important ones. I did it in order of importance. So bear with me. So I'm Mathilde Piard. I work for Cox Media Group. That's my 9-to-5 job. A lot of the rest of the time I'm actually doing a lot of volunteer work for the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition. So a lot of my examples today are from Georgia. So it's kind of it's kind of interesting to have examples from Pacific Northwest and Atlanta today. Those are the two links for the Facebook group and the LinkedIn group that Hamza mentioned earlier as well. So the first couple slides are kind of like to introduce, what you can use social media for. So I'm going to go through them pretty quickly. But essentially, you can use it for, advocacy, promoting your, in-person events, enlisting volunteers for maybe those events or other things, driving membership, promoting your partners, folks that are part of your coalition, and answering any questions that might be out there. And those are kind of like specific examples that I'm going to sort of show screenshots for. But in addition, there's, a bigger picture that can be sometimes a little more intangible. And that's really communicating with your audience, whether that's your members and volunteers or politicians or the general public. Educating them about bike issues, increasing loyalty, maybe turning somebody who likes you on Facebook into a member, and then maybe turning a member into a very passionate volunteer. I mean, that's pretty much what happened to me, actually. And then, generally building a sense of community in your city. And then as well, crowdsourcing, whether it's for research or polls or surveys, having people send you their stories, photos that you can use in your materials as well. So I'm going to go through a couple quick examples. This is actually an example that makes me a little sad, but it's still a very good example. So Georgia had a bunch of T-Splots this summer, and if T-Splots had passed in Atlanta, there would have been money that would have gone towards improving a lot of specific projects. And so what ABC did is they went and took some photos of actual streets that would have received a bike lane. This was during the campaign. And posted it, and this was an incredibly popular post because suddenly everybody was sharing it. And in fact, it's not on this screenshot, but one of the women who shared it, I loved it. She was like, "This is my husband's commute to work. You should vote for this." And so really, you're empowering people who care about your issues to become your advocates on your behalf. Also, I like to use this example because it's a visual example. There's a huge trend in social media right now where everything's going visual, whether we talk about Pinterest or Instagram or Tumblr. It's a lot driven by images. Facebook as well. That is in the process of changing, though. So I think tactics do matter a lot because it matters in your results. And so it's always very important to keep track of what's working and what's not working for you on Facebook. Up until recently, images were working really, really well. But because of the way the algorithm works and has been tweaked, people are starting to report that now sharing links or just status updates are tending to work better. And by work, I mean like how many people see them. Because you may not realize, but when you go to your homepage on Facebook, you're not actually seeing a fire hose of all the things that you subscribe to. You're only seeing a sampling, and Facebook kind of like tries to figure out what that sampling, what is most relevant to you. So. I mentioned the importance of visual, so this is a cool tool I heard about once that was created by some folks from, some fellows from Code for America, and it's basically an app that allows you to pimp your block specifically. So sometimes it can be hard to get visuals that are compelling to use on social media, so there are tools out there, whether it's like just a screenshot of Google Maps or going out and taking a photo or doing something like this. Again, advocacy, encouraging people to come out to community meetings, using Facebook events to either recruit volunteers here for Tour de Fat, or social bike rides, or some ribbon cutting event that you want folks to come to. I'm going to come back later about one of my pet peeves when I see a lot of bike organizations that use social media. Sometimes they might have a profile set up instead of a Facebook page, or they might use a group. Or they might be creating events that aren't tied onto the Facebook page, but I'll get into that hopefully in a couple minutes. Promoting your partners. Don't forget to tag your partners as well, just so you can tag them. And then here, just some more customer support when your website's down. Sometimes that happens. Building community is, the biggest benefit you get from social media. In Atlanta, the Atlanta Bicycle Coalition has a main Facebook page, but then there are also several other groups that volunteers run for either social rides, or this one is the Bike Commuters of Atlanta. So I organize, for example, a monthly bike commuter breakfast, and this is a really powerful community where people can, motivate each other to commute, share tips and advice and stuff like that. And sometimes groups can be a little better for that. So I work for a media organization, so I was asked to make sure to cover the idea of how bike organizations can use social media to kind of like try to get at traditional media. So journalists and reporters are on Twitter, they're using it as part of the reporting process, they're using it to share links to their work, and they're already getting pitched by PR people all over. So they use it to crowdsource as well, so reach out to them there. Media organizations love to use social media for crowdsourcing, and I have an example in the next slide. If it's relevant to city issues or biking, hop on the bandwagon and get your members to as well. One thing that news organizations will pick up on is if there's like something that goes viral, they'll be like, oh wait, this is actually kind of a big deal, because they don't necessarily believe you if you're telling them it's a big deal, because obviously you're being biased. But suddenly, if there's like a huge movement, then they'll start paying attention to it. And one of the things about social media is it really enables you to empower your members and volunteers to use social media from a grassroots perspective. So here's an example. Creative Loafing is our alternative news weekly. Again, during T-Splosh, they put out a crowdsourcing call. They asked for people to send photos of their commute, and a lot of people actually sent in photos of their bike commute. There was also somebody who sent in a photo of his run commute. He's actually the husband of the executive director of the Bicycle Coalition, so a little bit of traitor there, but we'll take it. Recently, there was an article in the Georgia Voice, actually not an article, a column by a former radio personality. It was pretty terrible. I'm sure a lot of you saw it because it actually kind of went national. But this is another good example where your community can be your advocate. So that article had 500 comments, and then more than almost 6,000 shares on Facebook. There was a huge community that rallied around it. So I think definitely that kind of helps in getting your community to be your advocate. Especially if you're only a staff of 3, it really helps to have a huge community of really passionate people working with you. So I mentioned kind of the differences between Facebook pages, profiles, and groups. I'm not going to stay on this slide too long, even though it's really my pet peeve, because if you're not set up properly, it might seem technical and silly, but it actually does impact how successful you might be on Facebook. But I can come back to this slide during questions, because it can get a little tedious. So I created that Facebook group a couple of days ago for social media and biking if you want to continue the conversation beyond today. One tip here that Brett Bruce from Georgia Bikes wanted to share was about making sure to tag other people. It says, I see a lot of missed opportunities for sparking conversations. Everyone enjoys being tagged in a positive post. And then one question that somebody posted in that group was, when should I post? Ignore any advice that you see out there that's oh, you should post every 2 hours, or you should post only during the weekends because nobody's on Facebook during the week. It depends. It really depends on who your audience is. There are tools out there that will actually look at your own Facebook page to see how your audience interacts with your content and gives you personalized advice based on your specific experience. I'm being told I have to wrap up, so I actually, I'll just cycle through without necessarily talking about it. So if you do look at your Facebook Insights already, if you are at that level of using Facebook, you should know that you have to refresh your benchmarks altogether, because recently Facebook announced that they had a bug where all of your metrics that you might have been tracking might have been incorrect. So start afresh. And if you haven't been doing it, then it's a great opportunity to start doing it to really understand how much you're actually getting out of your efforts with Facebook. Twitter, there's a glossary there if you want to learn more about all the lingo as well. Pinterest we talked about. This is my Pinterest board. So What happens is you have like a lot of like boards, and you can pin different images. It's visual bookmarking. You bookmark images basically. So I have a lot of bike-related ones, and I really like dressing up one is actually sort of bike-dominated too, because I like to dress up with my bike. And somebody actually, I mean, it's really fun. Somebody repinned this product I had posted about how to like, this thing that you attach to your bike to take your dog on a walk. Somebody repinned it to a Pets on Bicycles board. There's a Pets on Bicycles. Not only that, but I tried to Google it to find it, and I found several Pets on Bicycles boards. But this is specialized. They're doing a really, really great job with Pinterest, and in particular, they've targeted towards women. As Mary went over, you know, Pinterest definitely caters very strongly towards the women crowd. This is an example. One thing I really want to make sure I get to, I know I'm a little over, is, you know, we've talked about a lot of social networks today, and you're probably thinking, oh my gosh, how do I do this all? You don't have to do it all. First of all, you target and you pick the social network that matters to you. If you are a women's bike organization, you're on Pinterest. You know, if you're in Atlanta, it's really important that you're on Twitter. That kind of stuff, and you do that based on the awesome research that Mary presented. You can also leverage your volunteers. They're probably using Instagram. Some of them might be using Pinterest. So this is an example from a Bike Savannah board, but that is being contributed to by several folks. And that's, as you can see, those little icons there, and the one in the middle is Georgia Bikes. So, so yeah, I'm being told to 10-second wrap up, so that's the end. But yeah, if you have more questions, I can also go back and go over LinkedIn and Instagram and all that kind of stuff.